Before feminism became popular and women were able to vote, Sacagawea helped guide a group of men across the western United States through treacherous landscapes and militant Native American tribes to map out the western frontier. Objectively, her accomplishments are incredibly impressive, but to most people she can serve as a person who overcame adversity, a person who empowers us still today. Sacagawea was born around the year 1788 in what is now Idaho. She was born into a Lemhi-Shoshone tribe, which would later become one of the U.S. Army's largest problems as the West was settled because of its aggression towards soldiers. Around the age of 12, she was captured by a group of Hidatsa Indians during a raid on her tribe. They took her to what is now North Dakota, and she was quickly taken as a wife by Toussaint Charbonneau, who was a French trapper. Because of her marriage, she quickly learned to speak French along with the language of the Shoshone, which she knew previously. At the age of 17, she became pregnant with her son, Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, who would later be born on the journey with the Corps of Discovery. That winter, Lewis and Clark spent the winter with Sacagawea and Charbonneau at Fort Mandan. The Hidatsa lived in close proximity to Fort Mandan, and the two are often synonymous. Lewis and Clark soon realized the potential of having both Sacagawea and Charbonneau as guides because of their linguistic skills in native languages and their knowledge of Indian cultures. That spring, in the year of 1805, the Corps of Discovery set off with 3 new members of their team: Toussaint Charbonneau, Sacagawea, and baby Jean-Baptiste. Many expected Sacagawea, the sole woman of the Corps, to be a hindrance at best. However, she displayed her ability quickly on May 14, 1805, when she saved items that began to wash down the river after a boat tipped over. This action gained her a great deal of respect among the members of the team, especially Clark, who wrote about it in his journal. However, she is only mentioned sparingly after this, until June 10th, when Clark writes, "The Indian woman, much worse this evening. She will not take any medicine." At this point, Clark became worried about her health. He moved her into his tent and bled her, which was a medical practice of the 1800s. He then wrote in his diary, "From the consideration of her being our only dependence for a friendly negotiation with the Snake Indians." This displays the fact that Sacagawea had soon become an integral part of the team. Within 3 months of her joining the Corps of Discovery, she had already become a valuable asset. However, as she continued to get better, one can see that Sacagawea didn't receive any help from her husband, Charbonneau. In fact, he refused to give her a reprieve from carrying the packs allotted to her, or helping feed her, despite having what is now diagnosed as septic shock, an infection of the excretory system. Even when she began to get better, Charbonneau demanded she search for fruits and exert herself more, which hampered her recovery greatly. The situation adequately portrays the treatment of Indian women at that time. Charbonneau believed that Sacagawea would simply be an obedient squaw and obey his commands, no matter what they were. However, she proved to be much more of a help than simply gathering apples. On July 13, 1806, she guided the Corps of Discovery through an area that she had traveled with her Shoshone tribe as a child. As time went on, Lewis and Clark became very fond of Sacagawea's manner. She seemed to always be calm, cool, and collected, and never cracked under the pressure of the journey. When Charbonneau hit Sacagawea, Clark severely reprimanded him. At this point in the journey, Sacagawea had proven herself more useful and capable than Charbonneau, according to Clark's journal. Her biggest contribution was negotiating free passage through the Shoshone lands of her ancestors. On August 17, 1805, she began to speak with Chief Kalmiowet. After some discussion, she learned that she was the sister of the chief and was able to secure the passage of the Corps of Discovery, as well as many trades between the Corps and the tribe. This negotiation was of utmost importance because the Shoshone helped the Corps of Discovery over the Rocky Mountains, which served as the biggest obstacle to reaching the West Coast. Also, Sacagawea helped purchase horses that facilitated the journey. Without her skills in negotiation and knowledge of the lands, the Lewis and Clark expedition could have become a side note in history books, and even considered one of Jefferson's mistakes. As Sacagawea was elevated to a highly esteemed level among the corps, Charbonneau descended the ladder and was relegated to walking behind Sacagawea on her horse. It is interesting to see how capable Sacagawea was in comparison to her husband, who would abuse and demand things of her. As they neared the Pacific Ocean, Sacagawea asked and was granted the opportunity to see the ocean in one of the first two boats along with Lewis and Clark. The journey home was fairly easy, and the Corps of Discovery returned to President Jefferson with a map of the West. The settlement of the Wild West had just begun. The remainder of her life is somewhat of a mystery. She spent 3 more years with the Hidatsa at Fort Mandan, but then accepted Clark's invitation to settle in St. Louis, Missouri. She had 1 more child with Charbonneau, and then she entrusted Jean-Baptiste's education to Clark. However, she died unexpectedly in 1812 to an unknown illness. Not surprisingly, Charbonneau signed over the custody of their second child to Clark. Sacagawea's role in the mapping and research of the Corps of Discovery was integral in the development of the West. Her help allowed for the Corps of Discovery to present President Jefferson with information about the biggest purchase of land in U.S. history, the Louisiana Purchase. This led to a new frontier and a development that no one could have foreseen. However, her contributions go beyond the concrete. Sacagawea isn't just another famous person who helped with a historic project in U.S. history. Before feminism and the women's suffrage movement, Sacagawea showed women's ability to not only work alongside men, but to strive. After being beaten down by an Indian culture which reduced women to servants and elevated men to overlords, Sacagawea stands out as a woman who is just as capable of doing anything a male Shoshone Indian could possibly do. In fact, she greatly outshone her husband, who tended to be a lazy man who froze up in tense, pressure-filled situations. When Americans look at women who lead the way, they often think of Jane Addams, Eleanor Roosevelt, Harriet Tubman, or even Jeanette Rankin. But many fail to remember that Sacagawea came before all of these figures. She proved to all what women were truly capable of.